All right. Well, with that, I'd like to welcome all of you to Boroughs and Burbs, Season 2, Episode 2. This is the branding episode. We have Matthew Leone, the Chief Marketing Officer from Brown Harris Stevens in the New York headquarters. And we have Chris Halstead, newly appointed Executive Director of Sales for Connecticut. And we're going to basically direct all of the suburb questions at Chris. So with that, I think it's time to begin. Oh, and I have to also introduce Roberto Cabrera, my co-host in New York, looking fabulous as always in your New York apartment.
Yes, thank you.
Do you ever go into the office?
I rarely go into the office. I'm always on the run. This is my pit stop right here.
As a good agent should be.
That's right.
You know, it actually is very relevant, I think. In the last year, I've only experienced you through this screen.
That's right.
And really, to the whole concept of branding and personal branding, I only experience you individually. I experience so many of these agents as individual performers, but I've so rarely, at least in the last year, have been able to experience all of you together in a collective sense. And I think, Matthew, maybe you want to address that as the very first question. How has COVID basically changed the notion of branding, and when you're worrying about the big brand of the agency, not the small brand of the individual agents?
Well, I think what's changed most, I guess, is more your mediums that you invest in. I think one thing that has gone down, I think, considerably is investment in print. I know that it was already declining before the pandemic. I think it was even more so declining afterward. I think there's been an enormous influx in digital spend, social media spend. That's where if you look at before and after a pandemic, screen time has gone up over 60%, and screen time was high before that. So I think investment in digital was high. Any product that we ever considered an outdoor was more like sort of, let's kick it down the curb another quarter. And we really didn't invest much in that. So I think it's more the mediums changed a lot, but then at the end of the day, the last year and a half, a lot of your messaging has been centered around a lot about the value of home, the value of the emotional attachment that one would have to a home. I think the meaning of a home changed a great bit over the last year and a half. So when it comes to real estate, that really did help us immensely. We did change it to more of an emotional message. And also a message of, I think you understood the value of an agent over the last year and a half because of low inventory. The best agents found you homes, as opposed to some that were left behind. The best agents negotiated homes. So I think that also helped too. And that's going to really be a big play in our brand messaging launch next week, is centered around the value of a good real estate agent has never been higher.
I hear that the medium has changed. I hear that the messaging has changed because of COVID, and the medium has changed also because of COVID and how we're all working, I guess, from home. How about you, Chris Halstead? Is that equally true for the suburban market, of which you're now responsible? Is that equally true for the suburban market as it is for the urban market, New York City market?
Well, I think obviously the suburban markets have seen a huge upsurge in interest and volume. And to Matt's last point there, I think the importance of an agent, particularly in a market where you have such intensity, has become apparent, because, to be perfectly honest, the barrier of entry in this industry is pretty low. But there's a reason why people who are at this company, Brown Harris Stevens, and who are agents who are consistently at the top are, and it's because they've done really well at mastering their profession and understanding what's important to their clients and their customers, but then also finding a way to reiterate that over and over again to the marketplace so that they remain present and remain available to people who they've had in the fold in the past, but then also, ever expanding business plan. So I think, as it relates to the pandemic, we have had in the suburbs a great surge. And with that rising tide, I think there's opportunity for a lot of people to do business. But again, the people who have done well before the pandemic are still the ones who are typically at the top and will continue to be so, because they understand the importance of their brand, the importance of being a good agent and understanding what's important to clients and customers, and haven't lost sight of that despite, kind of the crazy volume that we're doing. So they're still very aware of their foundational business, I'll call it, despite this great surge in market.
So let me ask you something. We're talking about people being successful, especially, and the people who really, like, it's a low barrier to entry, but to be successful, it takes a lot. And it takes a lot of identity, finding out who you are, and being unique to everybody else in the industry, all your colleagues who are your competitors. But so let's just say you're a really good broker, you do very well, you know how to do the business, you understand the deal, but how do you create how does someone who doesn't know what they're about, or where do they dig deep to find that, to identify themselves?
Well, I mean, I personally think that the value of a brand is very important to an agent. I think a lot of agents look at it a lot of the times as, oh, you become the brand of the brokerage. And I think it's partially true, but I think a bigger part of it is that you're a CEO of your own company, and that's an independent contractors operate in that such. So you can't, because you're in a brokerage that tends to have a handful others, in our instance, 2,500 other agents. I think there is a need to differentiate yourself in that pack as well. So the way you do that, in my opinion, is you understand your expertise. You understand what you're very good at, what you bring to the table. I know that I was speaking to an agent yesterday that, he creates his own floor plans for his agents, alternate floor plans, has an understanding of contracting, understanding of DOB standards and how you can combine the unit next to you. And that's added value. I know some that are stagers, and they bring that to the equation. I know ones that are interior designers, they bring that to the equation. I know individuals that are skilled and expert negotiators, they bring that to the equation. I think you have to understand what you're great at and mold that into your brand. Your brand is not only your logo, it's your brand message. It's that elevator pitch that you have 15 seconds until that elevator opens and you got to win that business. You have to know in under 15 seconds, why are you better and worthy of that business versus thousands upon thousands of other agents. And in some instances, on average, that person who you know very well knows 10 to 15 other agents that they know well, be willing to work with. So like, how are you separating yourselves from them? I think that separation is your brand message. And I think people have to look at it beyond just that mark. I think everyone, when they think of brand, they think of, the Nike swoosh, but that's not the brand. The brand is the message and the difference that Nike provides their client. That's their brand. And the fun, go along on that is their very attractive mark. So I think that's really, know what your difference is from the rest, and you have a brand.
So let me ask you that. So the most unique thing about anybody is that they're themselves, right? I am me, you are you, and someone would describe you as a certain way, someone would describe me as a certain way, John a different way. Is the default really the starting point is like, who are you really, and base it in that, because that's really what makes you the most unique. And of course, we all want to be professional, we all want to be knowledgeable, etc. But that start at really the core of who you are and look at yourself in the mirror and then start to build from there. And knowing that you're not going to appeal to everybody, but you're going to appeal to your people.
I agree with that. I think real estate agents, the number one trait that one wants to see in them is someone that they can trust. So the way that you build trust is building an authentic message as to who you are, what you bring to the table, and stay true to that. Don't be something else that you're not. Don't speak in another voice that speak in your authentic voice. Speak in how you would approach a conversation is how you should be approaching your marketing and advertising, messaging. So I think that, yes, you do need to be authentic. You need to follow in that track. But at the same time, I think you also have to understand what your specialties are and exploit them as much as possible versus the rest. So it goes beyond just having that simple, authentic message. It has to get into, are you identifying the real reasons why one should work with you versus the rest? Because I think that, yeah, they want to get along with you. I get it. And you don't want to work with someone that you don't really jive with and connect. But they want to work with you because you're going to get the best price. You're going to negotiate on their behalf. You're going to get them to pass their board. You're going to do all of these things that check off boxes that are necessary during an incredibly stressful time in their life. So they want to go to someone who's just going to get the deal done. So build that message to them as to why you're best for them, most qualified, most experienced, most professional, and they're going to want to work with you. And then secondary to that is, do they feel that they've built a connection with you? Do they feel like they can work with you? I think you need that, but I think that that's secondary to, are you skilled enough to get the job done?
I know that there are plenty of agents on this call right now who say, I am authentic, I am honest, I know my stuff. I don't get the chance in the 21st century. It's no longer good enough that I get to meet them, shake their hand, and talk to them about the authentic me and why I'm qualified. Now I'm expected to reinvent myself as an internet publisher, as a personality, in order to convey my brand, in order to win business. And if I told my mother that she has to be, my 78-year-old mother, who's been doing real estate pretty well since 1980, that she has to be an internet publisher, she'd say, like a lot of agents, I didn't sign up for that. I want to join a firm, a most capable firm, a most capable brand, and I want them to help me basically communicate my authenticity, my expertise. I don't want to be an internet publisher. So what do we say to those agents who say the rules changed in the last 10 years, where you, Matt Leone, expect your agents to go do outreach? And a lot of them are saying, I didn't sign up for this.
Well, I think what you're looking at is you're looking at one aspect of marketing and saying everyone should do it. I think your square hole, round peg type approach to this is that, what I think is most important is let's start with everyone's number one marketing job is you must prospect. And prospect is not internet publishing, speaking out to the masses. It's staying in touch with your sphere of influence in a one-on-one capacity, keeping in touch with them, whatever form that they want to be in touch with, for whatever frequency they want to be in touch with. You have to do that. That's your first step in this, is that you stay in touch with them, you give them the information that they need. Anytime they have a question, you answer it in a timely fashion. But then you fold in layers on top of that. Those layers on top of that simple prospecting of when you see someone at a cocktail party, when you see someone, maybe on social media, you see someone, when you check in them on the phone, you see them on the street. Like, each one of those is that you have to think about, how can I provide value to them in that moment? if they're looking for how's the market doing? What's going on? They know you're a real estate agent. They're probably going to ask you that question. You better be ready to answer that question in a short form fashion with value. That's what everyone cares about. Like, if they don't go up to a weatherman and ask him anything else but what the forecast is going to be. They're not going to go and ask the weatherman any other question. So when they go up to you, they're going to ask you, how's the market? What's my home worth? Should I be investing right now? Should I be getting in the market? Should I stay out of the market? When's the time to get in? At any point in time, you should have that answer ready, and you should be the most knowledgeable person ever. And if it's your mom, John, all the way down to your daughter, if she joins this industry in 3 to 5 years, they should all be doing that first. So then when we fold in the other items are mass marketing. They're not prospecting. Mass marketing is to get you to the point of prospecting and building relationships. You need to get in front of the people you don't know. The only way you do that is through positioning yourself to them through email marketing and social media. And if you want to blog post content, if you want to do mailers, if you want to do outdoor billboards, if you want to do these things that outward reach message, those are the layers on top of it that hopefully will eventually drive them in through reach and repetition. It's not going to be you do one, you're going to get them. I write one blog post, I write one social media post, I put one ad out there. That's not going to work. They over time will build trust in you to want to pick up the phone or to want to reach out to you when they look to refer someone or when they look to get in the market, buy, rent, sell. So it's a long haul. You got to see it as this is a 1 to 3 year span of hitting them repetitiously. And then they will eventually decide, you know, maybe this person is right for me to reach out to. They know their stuff. So my answer to your question about your mom in short form is you got to do what's comfortable to you, but at the same time, you are doing your disservice to yourself if you're not trying to become comfortable with tomorrow's technology and today's and tomorrow's ways of messaging.
Chris Halstead, I know that you're now in charge of Connecticut, and part of what you're doing is talking to every one of the 250 agents individually in Connecticut. So having spoken to the great range of agents out there, the ones who are getting branding right and those who are struggling with it, any perspective on what Matt just said from Connecticut?
Yeah, I mean, it's interesting, and I have had the opportunity to talk to a huge number of agents in Connecticut in different towns that do different things, that work in different price points and and respective products. And it all boils back to a lot of what Matt is saying is that you need to know who you are and who you are facing. And I think what I've been talking to a lot of people about is we have a lot of tools, and every brokerage has a lot of tools that allow you to reach out to everybody in this mass way. But not everybody who you're in touch with is deserving of the same thing, the same product, the same marketing piece. So the great thing that we have with the advancements of technology is the ability to craft easily different messages for different people. Because I think what I've been trying to learn from people and teach them is that you can be pumping all of your agents into Pilot or whatever your respective data management tool is for keeping all of your clients. But if you just have one list, like they're not gonna all want the same thing. Not everybody wants to see the market report because numbers aren't important to everybody. Not everyone's gonna want to see what's happening in the town of New Canaan this week because not everybody's interested in New Canaan or the community facing things. So what makes the most sense to me, and I think what I've learned from Matt, is to be very aware of who you are sending things to, and almost, I'll use the word audit, even though it's a little bit harsh, but do an audit of your clients and your contacts and figure out how you may be able to bucket them in such a way that you can be sending people different things and different messages so that you're diverse, but it's true to you and it allows you to continue doing touch points. Like Matt said, it's not, I'm going to send out the market report once and then just wait for this tidal wave of people to come in. If you think it's appropriate to send everybody that market report, great, but that's a mass bucket item. Then look at your silos, like, in Connecticut. Am I at the country club? Are actually a bunch of these, 60 people in my country club group? What's important to, what do I talk about with my friends at the country club? Maybe it's something different than the marketing report, but it gives you the opportunity to define something specific to those people. So because we have the technology, it is easy to make campaigns, do things differently, internet, either do blog posts or specific, targeted mailings. The tools are in place to allow you to be a very diverse marketer, which to me is so much more impactful than just pushing out the same newsletter every month that's just generic, frankly, and that everybody else is doing. So as Matt said, if you aren't willing to use the tools, all you can expect back from what you're doing in a mass way is, the one or two people who that is of interest to. But if you can further define the message that you're sending out and then use the tools that we have to help you do it easily, then I think your success rate's going to be a lot higher, because again, you're casting a much wider but also specific net to different groups of people.
Okay, I have a question about that. So for a long time, I thought, and I just want to know the differentiation, because for a long time, I was like, I don't want to pigeonhole myself to be a certain type of person because I'm going to lose all these other people. So I left everything very generic, and everything I did or everything I put out was just, it was like one dimensional, because I have clients who are old ladies and I interact with them and I function with them in a different manner than I do with the hedge fund guy that shows up in a Mickey Mouse t-shirt buying a $10 million apartment. I mean, they're very different people and you do different things and they require different things. So I was like, I don't want to be this person and never get that client and vice versa. And then I came to the realization that, I just got to make, I feel like is part of branding, like it's making a choice to be this. And I'm not going to get those people. I'm not going to get those people. Some people are going to look at me and say, that guy sounds ridiculous. I'm never going to call that guy. But some people are going to say, he's okay. And then that's my sector. And maybe those are the people that I'm going to get. There's enough business for everybody else. And that's what I'm doing in my branding, is kind of like, I have to make a choice to define who I am or what my message is, because it's not necessarily, we talked about, Matt, just the other day about a logo. A lot of people it's not necessarily a visual, it's a message. It's a, what are you? But you have to define that for yourself before you can, and it's about making choices. You can't be everything.
Roberto, if I ask you in 15 words or less to tell me who your brand is and your sector is, can you do it?
Probably.
Give it a shot.
Well, I would say that the first thing is that I am overwhelmingly transparent. I don't profess to know everything with my clients, and our process is very collaborative. Whatever their ideas are, I take them and I will execute whatever we feel as a collaborative is the best thing. And I will execute their vision as much as they can. Like in pricing, for example, we can go here, we can go there. Whatever you want to do, I will execute it and I will fight for you to the end. I am extremely loyal, and I never give up. Like I'm relentless, and I'm honest. I tell it like it is also.
Okay, that's what you think you are, but on the receiving end, I got to say, you're right. Maybe we should all be doing audits. I picked you among the 2,000 agents in New York because you wrote a market report, and I got an appreciation because through your writing, how you think and how you are analytical. So I think one of your great strengths, the attributes of your brand, is your analytical thinking and your ability to write and and so I know that you're on the Upper West Side of Manhattan. So I also deduce that you're probably a specialist in that half of Manhattan or that quarter of Manhattan, not a Brooklyn guy, not a Staten Island guy, but you're probably an Upper West Side kind of guy who's an analytical thinker. And I don't know that you have to define it any more than that these days. And that was enough for me to reach out and find out whether you were, to use Matt's words, authentic, real, trustworthy, and then you develop a relationship.
And John, to add to that though, like I just from a marketing perspective on what my opinion on Roberto is, and then also just touching on his question before this, I do think that Roberto is defined by his clients as someone who is just a valuable source of information. You know, you could tell in everything he puts out, if it's on social, if it's in his email newsletters, if it's in his mailers, if it's in his conversations that he has with you on this show or in person, is that he does his homework. And he is skilled to a point where he is going to have the answer for you, and very rarely out of his mouth will be, "I'll get back to you." And I think that there's nothing inauthentic or authentic about that. That's just what everyone in real estate should be. Like, everyone should be a source of knowledge where you are so knowledgeable to a point where you did your homework on everything that's going on in that market, the trends, the historical aspects of the market, what is moving, what is not moving, where are the prices going, that when you have that conversation, you are a valuable source of information. I think that far outdoes any other skill set that one would need if someone's going to strongly consider a real estate agent, because at the end of the day, you know, every 7-8 years, someone's in the market for a home. So if you're going to continue to stay top of mind to that individual, for them to refer you out and for them to work with you in that 7th or 8th year, you are going to need to give them something of value, something of value that is going to, in their eyes, validate you as like, you're the guy or the girl for this. I need a plumber to fix my faucet. I need a real estate agent to sell my home, to buy a home, to rent a home, to invest in something. So you're giving them a constant, consistent reminder through marketing, through messaging, through prospecting, that you're the person for the job. So I can't reinforce any more that if you're like Roberto and you're putting out this messaging, which is arguably the most comprehensive report that one would provide to their client base, there's going to be business that comes from that. There's no way there can't be. So I think a lot of people, sometimes they always get like lost in the mirage of, I want to give them something that they're going to interact with, especially on social media. I want someone like some soft sell that they're going to open and they're going to read. And that's all well and good when you look at the analytical numbers. My likes are high, my comments are high, my open rates are high, my click-through rate is high. But at the end of the day, did it validate you in their eyes versus the rest of the pack that you should be the one to work with? And that is the big difference here, is that some people just like to do these approaches that just, they deliver numbers. Like I see click-throughs, I see likes, I see comments, I see higher open rates. That's all well and good, but you got to balance it with, do they feel better about you as the one to refer to? Because when you refer someone out, like when you give like a restaurant to someone that, you should go to this restaurant, it's a great restaurant, you just put your name on the line there. Like if they went there, horrible service, the food is, completely ridiculously horrible, and the prices are too high, do they think a little bit less of you? Absolutely. So referrals are important.
Roberto actually does make recommendations in his newsletters on various restaurants. So I think you're talking about Roberto again.
But I pass that off. I use Eater, and they're the experts. I just providing you with the conduit to get to the information.
But you provide that balance, is that if you just sent an email out that said, here's 5 restaurants that I recommend, that's all well and good. And they're probably going to go to them and they're going to try it out, but are they going to refer you? They're going to refer you. They're going to refer you to a food critic to be a contributor, but they're not going to refer you to say, go get the best price for my brother. Like that's not going to happen. However, your open rates might be higher by funneling in that content and fueling it with something that validates you in their eyes, which is your perception of the market, your forecasting of the market, your opinions on where the best buys are, your opinions on where the market's going or where it was. So I think that is the perfect balance. And that's why in my opinion, and I said this to you, Roberto, years ago, your newsletter is is the gold standard for how one would want to message their audience of personal referrals, that network. And I really strongly think that anyone who is not, it's not a plug for Roberto, but anyone who's not subscribing to that, read it and learn from it and do something similar to it. Just don't send it to Roberto's contacts, because then that'll be that's not cool.
But talking about that, when the reason why I met John is because he had sent something from Connecticut, which was it was a bullet pointed, this neighborhood's up, this neighborhood's down, Cos Cob is this. And I was like, Cos Cob, what's Cos Cob? I never even heard of it. But it was such a snapshot of information that I was like, this guy knows what's going on. And he's just quickly, just like that, I could scan it. I knew what was going on in Connecticut.
And he gave it, no, but Roberto, and he gave it to you in a fashion that was easily digestible.
100%.
In a world that's attention spans is devolved past the goldfish. The average attention span of a human is 7 seconds. A goldfish is 8 seconds. You will get more time in front of your pet reading whatever you're writing than a human being. So if you're going to do whatever you're going to do, you better say it quick, because you're not going to get much time. I mean, look at TikTok, look at Reels. They're 15 seconds. That's all you're getting. There's a reason why they chose that time period, is because you're so overstimulated with messaging in this world. I'm sure everyone got about 15 notifications on their phone in the last 15 minutes of us being on this call. You are overstimulated. You have no time. Give it to me quick, or don't give it to me at all.
So I know you're working on the big brand, right? The brand that's supposed to represent 2,000, 2,500 agents. That's got to be a daunting task. When you start to think about what are the brand attributes, and then the core brand attributes that are going to represent all 2,000 of these people, and what visuals, what aesthetics am I going to, and what brand associations are we going to make? It's got to be, it's a tough task. And I know you're about to launch the new Brown Harris Stevens brand, a brand that's been around 150 years and is about to be remade. Talk to us about how the process is different, and perhaps than it was with Halstead only a couple of years ago, when you had a younger firm, an edgier firm with a colorful, that developed, you developed a very colorful approach. I think the colors was a core part of your last strategy, where you said, I recognize that each of these markets is different, and we're going to represent each of the markets with a different color. I thought that was brilliant. The other thing you did, and I want to know whether you're going to do it again, and if so, or if not, why not, is you associated with other key brands, such as the New York Yankees and Audi, because by association, you were able to communicate that Halstead is like the Yankees, Halstead is like the Audi, and we're in good company. So how is that thinking changed for the 150-year-old Brown Harris Stevens brand?
All right, well, two-part question. I'll answer the first part first. I think the first part is Brown Harris Stevens is a legacy brand. We all know that 147 years. You don't know many things that have lasted that long through all of the downturns that these markets have seen over that course of history, to still be here, to still be privately owned. If you look at Roberto in New York City, we are the only privately owned real estate brokerage of a size over 100 agents left. And that says something. It says that it's not easy to be privately owned and survive in real estate, unless you're a small boutique house. So that's one thing that's different. Number one is that we have this reach, but we also have this boutique feel of being available to you. I mean, the fact that we have the global sort of CMO on a call with two of our agents says about accessibility. It says that we are available to you, and we purposefully make a size of a firm the size we have so that we still have that bespoke type service. But at the same time, I think that's part of our brand messaging. That was similar at Halstead. I think that's where the similarities were. But the legacy part of this is where it changes with Halstead. I think Halstead could take more chances. I think they probably had in New York City price points still high, but not as super luxury high end like Brown Harris Stevens has in the city. I mean, they do dominate the inventory over 10 million. But what we want to try and convey on that is that that's not what defines us. What defines us is the luxury service that we provide, not the luxury listings that we represent in our inventory. So regardless of the price point, we like to say that every one of our price points is going to be provided that same level of luxury service. And that's what we're banking on. So that's really our big core message. But I think our campaign, which is it's not a new brand, but it's a brand messaging campaign, new brand messaging campaign. What that's going to center around is that the average experience of a Brown Harris Stevens agent is 23 years, I believe. It's agents that have been around and are successful, have honed their craft and are quite successful at it, because the average sales price per agent is highest in the nation at Brown Harris Stevens. So it does say something about their ability to succeed and get the prices that one would never dream of. That takes place here, the formula for success. So that is really what Brown Harris Stevens is. I don't think it's too far off of where Halstead was. I think both companies had so much synergy, it made sense to align and merge both. Your second
No more
part,
Yankees, no more Yankees, no more
But-
Audi. How come?
but the second part of the question is that
It's not because they lost last week, is it?
it partially due to that. That was Garrett Cole should be, he should be arrested for the amount of money we gave him and the amount of output we got in a play-in game. He should be ashamed of himself. And if he's on this call, I'd say it to his face. But no, separating ourselves from the Yankees, I think the Yankees made sense for Halstead because they were a mass market firm. They were looking, being around only 30 years. They needed to make a big, bold statement. And I think it made sense for them. I think Brown Harris Stevens has been around for a long time. It is new to some markets, and that's why we're going to continue to do some very, very interesting strategic alliances. I think a lot of them are going to be around philanthropic causes. I think that is the right partnership, because the way we do business at Brown Harris Stevens is what I want to get across, is that we're not just about the commission. We are about helping the communities and really doubling down on that, looking at the communities that we service and partnering with the right companies and the right institutions. We're going to be doing a great partnership that Chris is currently working on, that we're going to soon be launching in the Connecticut markets. We are also going to be launching with Tunnels to Tower, and that great organization, and doing some great work with them. We're going to be doing a lot of work with other institutions. We're also doing something with Saks Fifth Avenue. We're doing a great partnership, which we'll announce this Friday, a very unique one with our Brown Harris Stevens Development Marketing Division. So I'm all in on that. I don't say that just because we're at Brown Harris Stevens now, I'm not going to strategically align with brand partnerships. I am a big fan of brand partnerships.
If the Yankees start winning again.
If they start winning, yes. If they start winning again. I also have a great relationship with Miller Motor Cars. I think there's a great work that we could do with them in the near future, which is currently on just a standby once our brand messaging is out. So yeah, there's a lot of things that we can do. And I think part of building a brand is your content strategy, and doing brand partnerships allow you to get the voices from other like-minded luxury brands or like-minded institutions to get their message aligned with ours and push over social and blog and email and so on. So I'm in favor of that. I just think that I'm a little bit more selective now on who we choose. And I think the bar just raises a little bit because you have a legacy brand and you have a responsibility, a generational responsibility. There were people before me that were caretakers of this brand, and they got them through 147 years. I want to handle this with responsibility. And that's why I will, just really second guess everything, because, this has been around for a while and we want it to be around another 150 years.
Chris? Were you trying to get in there?
Well, no, and I'm in our Westport office, and for whatever reason, there's like a procession of construction trucks that keep going by. So I'm muting myself to keep from the background noise. But no, I mean, I think Matt basically summed it up incredibly well. I think a lot of you know, obviously, I was at Halstead for a reason, but then in addition to the brand, to what would I call the familial obligation, I thought that the brand spoke very well to me, and the character that was there was very much in line with how I like to do business and conduct myself. Fortunately, in the combination with Brown Harris Stephen, or the merger, if there was ever a brand that I would have gone to, it was Brown Harris, because again, the legacy aspect of it and the strength of the brand, and not that I ever felt nervous going on pitches, but going on a pitch when I knew I was up against Brown Harris, I felt like there was something strong inherent in that my competition's pitch, just because they had that 147-year-old history, and there was a pedigree associated with it. So to be able to bring that out to our suburban marketplaces, where, as Matt said, the brand recognition isn't quite there yet, but it will be, because there is a brand, there is history to this, and it's an easy story to tell. And I think that that history and the connection to the city and our other markets is a huge asset to our agents, and that's something that will continue to evolve and will become more obvious. And again, we've touched on it before. At the end of the day, all the agents, when you go on a pitch, you're selling yourself. The brand is always secondary to that and is definitely important, but you are selling you and the benefit that you bring to the table. The brand will be there, and to have a strong brand behind you is definitely important. And I think, that Brown Harris and everything that Matt and his team is doing, and then the history that precedes him and his work, is an incredible foundation to stand on. But getting, back to the individual, when you walk into that room, they're going to want to work with you, because they're going to want to work with you and what you bring to the table in your area of expertise. And again, knowing what that is and being incredibly knowledgeable about the market and how you're going to market things and what's happening in space is, in my opinion, the utmost importance. And then you got to know the brand behind you and everything that it offers, but you, the agent, are the star in those meetings. And so you need to know who you are and why you are a star.
All right, I want to play a game. I'm going to put out a word, and all three of you can dive in and tell me, give me a reaction, okay? I came up with 10 brand attributes that I thought were relevant in the real estate business. And I want to know from you whether you think it's a little bit important, very important, or absolutely critical, these brand attributes. These are things that real estate agents and real estate agencies say all the time. So the first one, the most obvious, is we're the biggest. So brand attribute, we're the biggest. Agents who say we're the biggest. We're biggest in New Canaan. We're biggest in New York. Is that important? Is that critical? Not so critical.
I mean, I think that has to be dissected. Well, like, biggest doesn't always mean best. So I would say, if explained properly, is important. I don't think it's critical by any stretch of the imagination. I think, like Chris said before, at the end of the day, they're working with that agent, and then secondary to that is the brokerage. So I think as long as you have all the tools that are necessary to equip that agent who's in front of you in that moment to try and win that business, if you give them everything they need, and you're just simply not as big as them, the other guy, I don't think how many offices or agents you have matters at all, especially with affiliate networks that we have and other firms have. I think that the size of you means nothing if you have the services. Like, if our suite of services are better than a franchise, how big they are is meaningless.
Chris, Roberto, I see so many ads that say we're number one.
Well, I think the problem with data is that it's so easily skewed. So as Matt said, what does we're number one mean? And how are you framing that up? And at the end of the day, I think, when you're dealing with this level and this quality and caliber of brokerage, everybody could probably make an argument that qualified them as being number one in some set of circumstances. So again, what does the brand and its qualities benefit you as an agent or the seller or the customer? What services have I done? And that there's that great piece that we've done where we have all of these highlights of accomplishments that we have that maybe are not number one. We're not, speaking to you, John, we're not number one market share in New Canaan, but we have done so much in individual accomplishments. And I think that speaking of a brand as being the biggest doesn't necessarily mean that you as an individual are not the best person for that job. And again, that just shows you have this brand to support, which is still a powerhouse, offers so much, has all of these incredible accomplishments, but then I have also done this. I am capable, as an individual. So I think people get hung up on the bigness of a brand where it's really not as important as people make it out to be.
To me, biggest represents like mass market, not specialized. And, it's like that phrase is like best in the city, best pizza in the city, best coffee in the city, it just kind of gets lost. So it doesn't have a lot of meaning to me for that particular category.
All right, my next one is longevity, right? Been around a long time, lots of experience. I look at Scott Hobbs there in the little cell, and I know that he goes to market talking about a 3-generation firm. Our firm has been doing this in this community for 3 generations. And it's a proxy for saying you can trust us. So speak up, Scott, if you like. And you've just spent a lot of time, Matt, talking about 147 years. So is that important anymore? Do people care about what happened more than, 2 years ago? Some of these agencies going public would say, who cares?
Do you want Scott to answer that? I think Scott, maybe you want to chime in a little bit, then I'll go.
Scott, does it matter?
I don't know.
I think there might be at least a small difference from being a construction company where we're actually putting the stuff in place and you're putting a long-term physical asset in place. You want to make sure you know who's behind it and backing it up. I believe on the realtor side, they should have similar concerns, but the reality is you're acting as a broker. It's not like the realtor built the house. You're trying to act as the trusted broker, giving them the good information for a long-term expensive purchase.
Yeah, I mean, to add to what Scott said, I think that whenever you make a choice on something, I think reputation matters. Like if you go to a good restaurant and it's been open for 75 years, there's likely a recipe for success there. There's likely they're doing something right. Like if they were doing something wrong, they'd be out of business. No one would be wanting to work with them, work for them. So does it matter longevity? I think that the companies that have been around only a short while will tell you no, because they know it does. I think it does matter. I think that experience matters. I think success over time matters. But again, it's only part of the equation, because you're talking about a brand, but then you're also talking about, it could be someone who just started out in the industry working for a company that's been around 147 years. So the support staff and the structure and the formula for success is speaking to the longevity, but the agent in front of you isn't. So it's that equation that you have to factor in all pieces into the equation before you make a decision.
Reach. I know that some of these agents are saying we have global reach. We have offices in every country in the world. Others say, you know what, we are not all over everywhere. We are focused on the East Coast, or we are focused on the West Coast, or we are focused on New York, or we're a New England agency. So how does reach, and maybe that's the wrong word for it, reach, but how is it important, the geographical specificity for these firms? Is it important that I have global reach, or is it important that I have reach within really good reach within a very narrow market? Talk to me about reach.
I mean, I think that you have a responsibility to your client to have reach. I think, reach and repetition is the formula for success in marketing. That's 50% of it.
So
So
it's critical. Reach, defining your reach
well,
is critical.
no, see, so actionable, reach is critical. Just to say you have offices and not communicating with them, not cross marketing with them, not interacting with them, is useless. That's reach that does not matter. But if you know how to sort of build equity with that reach and build communication and marketing strategies and utilize them, then reach matters. I think that having being the only New York City firm in our affiliate network and leading real estate companies in the world, being one of the only in Connecticut, I think that reach matters because we have senior leaders in senior positions there that could get business from
Let's
these
get
other.
real specific. Chris, do your clients ask for a different kind of reach than say Roberto's? Roberto, a New York apartment seller wants what kind of reach do they think they need? And is it different, Chris, in Connecticut?
Yeah, I mean, I think what Matt is saying is that, and I'll take this back when we're talking about figuring out how to market yourself to your sphere of influence, and that there's no longer just the one size fits all. That you need to do the large macro approach, but in addition, then the micro, and particularly in the suburban markets, being in your respective market and relevant in the things that are important to New Canaan, people who live in New Canaan, so that I think it's incredibly important to do both and to do both well. You can't do one and suggest that you don't need to do the other because you've done this one exceptionally. I think that, as is the case with anything now, you just need to cast an incredibly wide net, but the wide net does include what I would call kind of a hyper-local focus, which is why, to Matt's credit, we've now got these, local marketing experts, because there need to be people boots on ground who understand the specifics of each of our respective space. And then I'm sure in the city, that's the same, that there are, you cast wide, but then you also need to be cognizant of what's happening in your, very much more narrow space.
For us,
I would argue that reach is a commodity now that we have Zillow and StreetEasy, that everybody reaches all possible potential buyers. So reach has become less important. I don't know.
If you're working with a buyer, you want your reach has to be really super hyper localized. They don't care that you can do business in London, right? If you're a buyer, they want to know that you know your market. If you're dealing with your seller, they want to know that you can reach absolutely everybody, especially in a market like New York, where it's of global interest. In Arkansas, you don't necessarily have people from Russia and Italy and India who want to go to Arkansas. I'm not saying that they don't, but in New York, that's a very big commodity, as you said, to be able to offer that and to have that. And we have an amazing network. So,
well, you have to cover all your bases. And that was what I was saying in the second half of that was, you have to have that reach that competes with your other offerings of agencies. But at the same time, you have to know where your vast majority of your buyers or renters are coming from when you're representing the seller. You have to know where your business is coming from, and you have to double down on that and repeat that type of messaging and marketing towards those audiences. And at the same time, not forget about these other factors, which are much smaller percentages. Maybe it could be, in New York City, if you're a Connecticut agent, maybe a smaller percentage comes from New York City. Maybe they come from perhaps Boston. Maybe they're coming from overseas. You still have to cover those bases and reach those individuals for the widest net. But you have to understand where the vast majority of your business is coming from, and you've got to really have your house in order for that type of messaging.
Roberto, is reach a differentiator for you in New York? It occurs to me you're competing with 2,000 other agents within your agency and 50,000 agents across the whole city. I mean, it leads me to my next one, which is how do you differentiate from all those other agents? You probably say, service is the differentiator. And you're going to get a great level of expertise and a great level of service from me. And reach is a commodity. Am I right?
Yes, I think the differentiator just for me is I make it extremely personal, so that they trust me. And that because the trust is everything. And to try to build that trust super fast. So I get, and that's my differentiator, because I know that there are people that might come in with much better analytics, much more, like you have an incredible pitch presentation. I mean, it's so meticulous and it's so thorough. Like if I went up against you, competing against you, I would never be able to compete against you. I go to appointments with my phone.
Not in New Canaan, but I wouldn't compete with you on the west side either.
Of course you could. With those types, it would just be something different, and we would appeal to a different. The seller would either would grasp them, or my approach would grasp them. And I keep bothering you. I say you got to send me that template, because at least like Matt was saying, I need that in my arsenal, because a certain seller is going to want that. But I typically walk into an appointment with my phone in my pocket, and I have a conversation, and that's what and then I go back and I do analytics, and and then I communicate with them that way. But I mean, what you present is extraordinary.
But I think just to hit on something you just pointed out and didn't point out, you feel comfortable enough about the market and everything to walk in without needing that information, which means that you are well studied, everything that there is, so that you can carry on a conversation in such a way that that seller knows, like, this guy gets it. Like that in and of itself is of value. And that to me is a differentiator, that you are not, book-nosed in this presentation. Not to say that John is either, because I've seen him do it as well. But I think that is a differentiator and just shows your value, that you know the market well enough to be comfortable to do that. And that's unique and powerful.
I hope so.
My favorite slide on the deck you're referring to, and I'll just give my secret right here to everybody on the show, right? You want to hear one secret thing. The best slide on the show is where I show a listing how I handled it alongside that same listing handled by another agent in the community. And it illustrates better than any other slide I have how I write copy and take photographs and I present a house versus how the guy at Compass, Elliman, Ravis, BHS, it doesn't matter what firm it was, but this is how another agent would have presented the same house. And I put them side by side and I say, let's just talk about my thinking on presenting this house. I did it, it was very blue winter shot, and I wrote the copy that emphasizes these things. And my competitor, took a summer picture and emphasized those things. That, I think, was the most powerful way I could differentiate my brand from the guy in the next building. So.
And John, if you watch some of his videos, his presentation is so textured. You get the feeling of what it feels like to be in that house, what it feels like to feel that mahogany banister or whatever. I mean, it's amazing, especially that one video with the James Bond house. That's an amazing video that is you're just like, this place is unreal. And it's because of his presentation.
Well, I think also in your presentation, John, you do an extensive amount of homework on that home. You get like, what exactly is that material? When exactly was it renovated? When was this built? Where did this come from? Like, every one of these questions are asked, and then you formulate a script of sort and then present that in the same manner that Roberto was speaking of. But I think, Roberto, you also have to throw yourself into the mix here on, the way that you present homes in video is also a way that is incredibly strong, where you go and you almost speak about everything that they need to know in a short period of time. And you do it in a sophisticated manner where people are like, that added value to this home. Like, the presentation made me feel better about buying it. And I think that speaks highly of your brand. is that John's brand added value because he went into great detail and he told you every bit of story that you needed to hear about it. And then Roberto added value with his brand because he delivered it in such a sophisticated and surgical fashion that delivered you in under a minute or a minute and a half everything you possibly needed to know to decide whether or not you want that home or not. And so if you want to ever do like a master's class on does video work in real estate, and if it does, how do you do it? I think there's great 2 case studies before you with these both hosts to really study both of them to say, you know what, these 2 approaches do work. You also got to be good on camera.
One and the succinct one.
Yeah.
Well, you also got to be good on camera too. So if you're not good on camera, don't bother investing time into that. So you guys have honed your craft on that. But yeah, it is something that certainly matters because, you know, there's an emotional attachment one has to buying a home and living in a home and raising their family or their significant other living in that space. You build a bond to it after watching videos much more than you would on an image or text.
Can I just dispel a rumor here? I think that we all want to be realtors, not actors. I'm not an actor. Roberto's not an actor. And the secret is that when you say not everybody should be on camera, I disagree. I actually think that everybody on this call is capable of being on camera and being an expert about the profession they love, real estate. And if you put yourself in the hands of a really good videographer, a really good editor, they're going to make you look good. And I think that my editor makes me look good. He takes out all the ums and all the false starts, and he boils me down to something that I'd be proud to present. And I think that if you haven't made a video yet, you should, all of you. I'm looking at Joanne Santulli down there. It was several years ago, Joanne said, I'd like to make a video. I'd like to make a first video. And I said, let's go make it together. And Joanne and I went and made a video together. And she came away from it and she said, you know, that was fun and we look good. And you know what? I think everybody here should, in the 21st century, experiment a little bit with video.
Well, John, I agree with that. I just want to clarify my statement on I think that you should, after learning the craft of being in front of a camera, I think everyone can learn. I just think that in the best interest of your client, you should best present that home. And I think through training of being in front of a camera, having someone good sort of walking you through it like a good producer, or knowing where you're capable of being on camera and where you're not, maybe a little bit more voiceover, maybe just doing the beginning, just doing the end, like not being like you both are, which is 100% of the time, your voice and yourself are on camera. I don't jump in the deep end before you could swim. You know, like I think like let's inch in there in the best interest of your client, because it could hurt the value of the home, how you present it. I've seen it before. And you know, so don't take it lightly. That's all I'm saying.
All right. We have any closing thoughts on brand, personal brand, corporate brand, Connecticut brand, New York brand, global brand? I mean, we've talked about, you know, some go out there saying we're the biggest. Some say, oh, but we provide the best service. We have better reach. No, we have better technology. Oh, we're going public, very splashy. Oh, we start on $1 million listing. So there's so many different brand attributes. What's our takeaway from this hour on what's really important when we as agents go to market?
I mean, I'll be very short in this, and I'll go back to what I was saying about your brand is your elevator pitch. Your brand is the 15 seconds of why you versus them. That is how everything is built on. The foundation of all is if each one of you don't know in under 15 seconds why you're the best agent for that job, then you're doing yourself a disservice. So I would do that exercise with, you know, I would consider having everyone do that exercise after these calls and say, let me build this out. Let me build out in under 15 seconds. What is the best reasons to work with me? And then everything else permeates from that. And everything is built from that. That's to me a service-oriented brand.
I will basically follow up on that because Matt took the words out of my mouth. For me, the most important thing about a brand, and regardless of where you are in the suburbs or in the city, is to know who you are as an individual agent. And if you know who you are and you know what your strengths are, and that does take the exercise of taking the step back and audit the past clients that you've had, audit the past customers who you've worked with. And if you don't know what your strengths are, ask and figure it out, and know how when you walk into a pitch or into any relationship or introduction with a customer, who it is that you are and what you bring to the table. Know the brand, your bigger brand, who you work for. But at the end of the day, people are going to want to work with you. So you need to know who you are and you need to have it down pat.
Great. I agree. I think it comes down to really, it's about finding out who you are, being yourself, and doing what's in the best interest of the client in good faith, and it'll come through that it's genuine. And then you'll start to, then hopefully that'll all kind of start to define who we are. And if most likely you're going to be an appealing person that way, because you're just grounded in yourself.
Matt, did you notice all the logos behind me? I made sure that I had lots of brown Harris Stevens mouse pads on the wall behind me because I wanted everybody to know that I'm a proud brown Harris Stevens agent, but needed to make sure I got some branding in the show.
Well, you got the repetition part of the reach and repetition.
Could you send us something other than mouse pads?
I think those are car magnets, John, aren't
Yeah,
they?
John.
Yes. Yeah.
John, put them on your car.
Yeah.
Chris and Matthew, thank you so much for coming on. This has been amazing. Absolutely amazing. Really appreciate it.
Pleasure. Thank you guys for hosting.
John?
Thank you.
So long, sailor.
Thank you, Roberto. Bye, everybody.
Guys.
See you next Thursday, 4 o'clock.